In His grace, God gave us a sequential end-time timeline that was hidden in the Psalms for thousands of years, waiting to be discovered. It has now been revealed here at the last minutes of the church age. This channel discusses end-time prophecy from the unique perspective of the encrypted timeline in the Psalms. If you want to know where we are on the timeline, please subscribe and take some time to watch the other videos on this channel. Also, please consider purchasing a copy of Encrypted, Unlocking the Timeline Revelation in the Psalms. Not only will it help you to better understand the time we're living in, but it will also be a very important book to leave behind. God bless you. Okay, well, thank you for coming, all my fans out there.
Yay!
And so we're back. It's been had a little break, but I did one quick video, which you saw, and had been out of town for a couple of days, just got back, and so we're trying to pick up where we left off. And basically I wanted to do the Song of Songs. I've been working on this for a long time, and the whole study is now somewhere around 58 pages, I think, and so quite frankly that was just too much. So we're going to do something different tonight. However, we're still going to do it. Just different. It's going to be weird. It's going to be totally different. Okay? And I'm sorry, but I don't have any overhead. I'm sorry.
Really? Darn.
I didn't even turn the TV on because there's nothing to put up there. Sorry.
Could have been Forces and Prophecy. Something logo.
Yeah. Today was the Indy 500, and guess what I did while it was on?
Watched it?
No.
Listened to it?
I worked on this. Of course. Like, this is what I do.
I'm sorry.
Who do you think I am? No, a few years ago I would have been watching the Indy 500. Absolutely. I would have had nachos and all kinds of stuff going, but no, not anymore. This is what I do. So anyway, I have no idea who won. I don't know anything about it. And I was tempted today to turn it on for a little while and just kind of sneak peek, and I thought, no, if I do that, I'll be done. So anyway, I didn't. So I came in early today to try to. I really thought I'd have maybe a couple hours to finish this, and 6-7 hours later, it just I'm still not done. So it's just like a never-ending. Like I'm digging a hole and it just never ends. But it's a good hole because I'm digging for treasure, and I know it's down there, and I keep finding little chunks along the way. And the deeper you dig, I think it's endless. So you think, well, the Song of Songs, it's what, 8 chapters? How can it be that big of a deal? But it's very complicated. I'll just say that. So again, kind of did this a little bit different today. So anyway, let me just get started. I am tired because we were traveling. We had the graduations to go to out of town, and it's been a long couple of days. So anyway, I'm going to try to just get through this, and I'll add a little bit here and there because I did have to shift gears today, and so it was kind of all going in one direction. Like, this is a whole complete thing, and I was thinking that I would do half of it or maybe a third of it today and then break it apart, but I don't really think we're going to be here that long, just saying. And I wanted to finish it, so I thought, well, at least tonight I can just do like a summary maybe and just throw it out there, and that way, as I was saying before we turned the camera on, I keep struggling with not finishing what God has prepared for me to do in advance, and I want to finish. But if I don't, then I'm sure that He's in control and He'll have somebody else finish it. But it's going to be like under duress, obviously. And I think during the tribulation, people are going to have a hard time getting a Bible or getting access to any of this information. So anyway, I know to some people that may all sound crazy, like, what is this nut talking about? But as crazy as it sounds, it's coming. It's coming. But anyway, let me just start. And some of what I just mentioned is probably in here, so, because I do a lot of writing, obviously. And I do a lot of writing because I have a horrible memory. And if I don't write it down, I'll forget it. And so that's why I keep lots of notebooks and I write everything down. If I'm studying something, I'm writing. And then because I'm too stupid, quite frankly, to just go ahead and type it, then I take it from my notebooks and then I have to redo it into the computer, which is kind of dumb. But anyway, I'm old school, so we grew up in a time when you had a notebook and you took notes.
Yes,
And
sir.
my son in high school, yeah, good for you. My son in high school, I'm like, well, don't you take notes? I don't take notes. What are you talking about? They've got a Chromebook, and I don't know. It's just different. When you write something down, your brain registers it, and you learn it.
This is true.
If you don't, first of all, you're not going to learn it. Secondly, if you just clickety click, I don't think it works the same way. I think you actually have to write it.
Agreed.
And I think there's some science that goes along with that, but that's not what we're here for tonight. So, anyway, sorry. So this mini study is going to be called The Greatest Story Ever Told. And I'm just going to get started. However, first I'm going to say thank you again, as always, to everyone who prays for this little ministry, who has contributed. I really appreciate it. You just can't even begin to imagine how much I appreciate it and how much it has helped free up some time to be able to do things so that I'm not totally stressed about having to, just try to pay the bills. Because quite frankly, I don't do enough work to pay the bills anymore. And that's a struggle and it's a fight. So anyway, but thank you again. I really appreciate it. And if you would, you may be wondering why you're watching this, especially when you see, like, we're in an old shop and, it is what it is. It's not fancy. I don't have a library of fancy books behind me like a lot of people do, But anyway, we're here to talk about the Lord. We're here to talk about prophecy. We're here to talk about things that the Lord has revealed in these last days per Daniel 12. That things were sealed up and he's unsealing those things now, and that's what we're talking about. And we always pray, we've already done our prayer time, that the Lord would be speaking tonight, that it's not Karl, it's not any of us speaking, that this is what the Lord, and that he would be glorified. This is what the Lord wants spoken tonight. And every time I write anything or study anything, that's always my prayer. So just be forewarned. Okay, so here we go. As you may know from my past videos and from my book, if you've read it, and if you haven't, please purchase it. It may be too late to read it because it's like 640 pages. And you may not want to read 640 pages, then go back and watch old videos. But buy it. I don't care if you buy it or not financially. It doesn't make any difference because they take all the money. It's like, what, $2 or $3? I think $3 actually comes to the writer of the book. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, so it doesn't amount to anything. But buy it to leave it behind because it is a roadmap through the tribulation period. And people are going to be hungry for that information. And if you can leave that somewhere where somebody can find it, you have probably just saved a life. And maybe multiple lives, quite frankly, because they're going to be able to help others. Build some underground churches and whatnot and have information to know what to expect and what's coming. So let me start over because I already got on a sidetrack there. As you may know from my past videos and from my book, I think that's where I stopped, the Lord has allowed me of all people to decode the timeline he placed in the Psalms. At this time, the mountain of evidence indicating his soon return is overwhelming and growing daily. However, when you consider the 8 billion or so people alive at this present time, it's obvious that very few people know about any of this or even care to know, quite frankly. The Lord didn't give me a large platform to reach the masses with this message. That is a weakness this little ministry and I have. Plus, time is always my enemy because I also have a family to provide for. However, I know that in my weakness, he is strong and he has a plan. I realize it doesn't always have to make sense on this side of eternity, because it doesn't make sense. When I think about it and pray about it, I'm always like, Lord, come on. But it's not my plan, it's his. Okay, On March 18th, 2025, so a few months ago now, the Lord opened my eyes to the meaning and purpose of one of the most misunderstood, ignored, and sometimes hotly debated books of the Bible, the Song of Songs of Solomon. And yes, it's an encrypted end-time timeline, as you can imagine, or else I probably wouldn't be talking about it. As it turns out, the entire book is an encoded timeline of the last days, including the rapture of the church and the subsequent 7-year tribulation period centered around Jerusalem. It makes me wonder, like, how in the world did I not ever see this before? Because I've read through the Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, whatever you want to call it, many, many times, and always just kind of, my eyes rolled back in my head, and I'm like, duh, that's just crazy stuff. And so I knew even when I was writing the book, there's more to it, but I didn't really dig into it that much. So, when the Lord opens our spiritual eyes to His Word, it's like seeing for the first time. If you are blind, and I've never been blind. Well, one time I poured peroxide that's made for curing fiberglass in my eyes. Not intentionally, it kind of splashed in my eyes, and I was blind for a while, and it was crazy. But that's not what I'm talking about. Oh, and it burned really bad, too. It was terrible. So if you're blind, you can't understand what something really looks like in your mind without actually seeing it for yourself. You can only imagine something, and you might be way off. I mean, think about it. If you explain to a blind person what the color green looks like, how would you explain that, first of all? You just can't, Anyway, so for thousands of years, many people have imagined what the 8 chapters of the Song of Songs, or Solomon, are all about. But it's been with their spiritual eyes closed. If you take the time to listen to this study, I believe the scales will fall off your eyes the same as they did mine when the Lord opened my eyes to this amazing 8-chapter book. Why 8 chapters? As you will see, it's because it's a timeline made up of 7 plus 1, actually 1 plus 7. But we'll get there. That's a little bit further down the road here. So what is the Song of Songs? The name Song of Songs is an idiom that means the greatest song or love song ever written. It's the same as saying the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, or Holy of Holies, all of which means the greatest. So as a prophetic tale, it's truly the greatest love story ever told. Hang on to that, because that's going to be important. It'll make more sense later. In the Jewish Tanakh, it's part of the 5 books of the Migliot, which also includes Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, and Esther. Jewish tradition says that the Song of Songs might be an allegory of God's love for Israel. Christian tradition says it might be an allegory of Christ's love for the church. Some say it's a poem devoted to the beauty of intimacy between a husband and a wife. I'm here to say that once again, it's not one or the other, but all of the above, plus more, so hang on to that. When I say hang on, you don't have to hang on too long, because this was, again, supposed to be a 58-page thing, and I think we're at 9 pages for tonight, so yeah, you don't have to hold on to that too long. So, it's actually called the Song of Songs of Solomon, or Shir HaShirim, which is Shlomo's. I love Solomon in Hebrew because it's kind of a really dorky name. Hi, Shlomo. Anyway, let me try that again. I'll cut out the degrading Shlomo thing. It's actually called the Song of Songs of Solomon, or Shir HaShirim, which is Shlomo's in Hebrew, because of the, I have to do air quotes, of, or which is, and because Solomon is mentioned several times in the book, many believe it was written by King Solomon. However, I'm not sure that God would select a man with 700 wives and 300 concubines to write the greatest love song ever written. In fact, it was his wives and concubines who turned Solomon's heart away from God in the end. 1 Kings 11:3 tells us this. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. So, he's definitely not the best example of a faithful lover, even by Old Testament standards, which are pretty loosey-goosey. In fact, I think you'll see that that the Solomon character in this poem isn't even the good guy. Yeah, he's not the good guy at all, but he's actually the antagonist. People haven't been able to see that until now. Many also say the Song of Songs is just a collection of ancient love poems with a lot of suggestive sexual innuendo, but with no real cohesive or consistent narrative, storyline, or plot. They say its theme is simply that of attraction, desire, and love. Here's what one woman wrote about it, which I found very interesting. This is from the book Women's Bible Commentary, which I don't make a habit of reading, but I stumbled across this. Let's see. In that book, there's a whole chapter on the Song of Songs. It's written by J. Cheryl Exum, E-X-U-M, and this is what she wrote. Debate continues on the unity or disunity of the book. Those who see it as an anthology or collection point to the abrupt shifts of scene, speaker, subject, matter, and mood, and the lack of obvious structure or narrative. Wow, she writes worse than I do. Yeah, she does. That made no sense to me whatsoever.
It didn't to me either.
Okay. Well, strike one against Cheryl. Let's see. All right, well, we're going to just keep going. Those who hold it to be a single poem. Wow. Okay. And I did read this before, but now that the camera's on, it's like, wait a minute. Okay. Those who hold it to be a single poem point out that it has no internal signs of composite origins, and view the repetitions and similarities among its parts as evidence of unity. Some claim to find a conscious artistic design underlying it, but there is no agreement among them on what this might be. The question therefore remains unresolved. Well, finally, after thousands of years, here at the end of the church age, this is me talking now, this isn't Cheryl anymore. Just as Daniel 12 indicated, the question has at last been resolved. God sent me on a journey to decrypt this ancient prophetic love song, and I must say it's truly eye-opening. It has been. It is absolutely not just a collection of ancient disjointed poems, but an ingenious encrypted prophetic timeline of the final tribulation with a distinct cast of characters and a clear beginning, middle, and end. Once you see it, it will blow your mind and you will not be able to unsee it. I touched on some of the prophetic details hidden in the Song of Songs in my book. Buy my book. Leave it behind. Okay. But at the time of writing, God hadn't opened it up to me completely. I mean, I was really focused on the Psalms. It isn't lost on me that he waited until now, Wednesday, the 4th day, the 19th of March, when I wrote this, to begin walking me through this study about this final season. Just for anybody watching in the future, this is May the 25th?
Fifth.
Yeah,
Well,
2025.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah.
And Wednesday is the 28th. Okay. Let's see. To begin walking me through this study about this final season. According to the Essene calendar, the season, or Tekufa, changed to spring on March 18th. And the new year, the new Jubilee year, began on Wednesday, March 19th. That's according to Karl. I believe that's the way it works. Other people have other ideas about it, and that's okay. According to the timeline encrypted in the Psalms, this is the year of the rapture / resurrection. I haven't said slash yet tonight. I do a lot of slashing in my wording. And the beginning of the tribulation period. The rapture could have already happened, however, based on 2 Peter 3:9, we should have known that the Father would wait until the last minute to bring in as many as possible. The first Shemitah, which will begin in 7 years in late March 2032 and end 12 months later in 2033, will mark the end of the tribulation period and the beginning of the millennial kingdom. That is all according to the encrypted timeline in the Psalms. Again, all that's in my book. And quite frankly, we've been talking about it now for well over a year. So over the last month or so, the Lord has also allowed me to begin decoding. Now this again was back in March. Decoding the books of Job, Obadiah, and Lamentations. And we've already done Lamentations. That was easier, so I jumped ahead with that one. And that's among others. Unfortunately, time has continued to be my enemy, and I'm not sure I can finish this work because I also have work to do to provide for my family as long as we're still here, as I've already mentioned. So I do not want to DNF. Anybody know what DNF is?
Do not fail.
Do not finish, or did not
do not
finish.
finish.
So in a race, because car racing and stuff, it's called a DNF if you don't finish the race. It could be a mechanical failure, it could be you crashed or whatever.
Sorry.
So
I
We're
haven't
close.
been either, so.
I know God has a plan, and He didn't call me to this task in vain. So I'll keep moving forward no matter what, even if it's at a slow pace. He's still in control. So if you recall, I have said many times that the backbone of the end time timeline is in the Psalms. Without understanding the timeline in the Psalms, you won't be able to see God's prophetic timeline anywhere else in His Word. That's also the case in the Song of Songs. That's why nobody has ever discovered this until now. So when you understand the timeline that He put in the Psalms, and you really studied it and you know how everything lays out, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Now I just see it everywhere. And it's like, oh my goodness, I mean, I'm never going to... If He tarries and doesn't come back soon, there's no end in sight of what we could talk about. There's timelines and timelines and timelines. And they all match. So I can't find one that doesn't match. So that's what's really amazing about it. So here's the quick version of the timeline that is encrypted in the Psalms. The timeline actually began in 1998/1999 and jumped to 2020. But I'm starting from our time today and working forward until the 7-year tribulation period. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to go back and revisit all that. I'm going to start now with 2025. Okay, so this will be quick. And I will, by the time I edit this and put this together to put it on YouTube, I don't want to promise, but I hope to have a timeline put together that I can show now that has all this on it. Well, as much as I can cram into it. 2025/2026 is the year of the rapture/resurrection and the beginning of the tribulation. Jesus will return for His Leah bride and go back with us to the home He has prepared for us. Then the Antichrist rises to power over Israel. Okay, 2026/2027 is the primary year of the regathering of the children of Israel back into their land. Now that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen over multiple years, but that's where it's kind of fits into the Psalms. 2027/2028 is the year the new temple will be completed. I believe it will be started the year before. That's in Jerusalem, of course, but God won't be in this temple. That's Psalm 127. Okay, 2028/2029. In the year when the Lord returns to earth in the middle of the tribulation to lead the remnant, 2028/2029 is the year when the Lord returns to earth in the middle of the tribulation to lead the remnant of Israel like a shepherd into his refuge. The land of Israel will be made desolate, and the beast will try to devour it. 2029/2030 is the year when the Lord will continue to spare the remnant and turn back her enemies. The land of Israel will continue to be plowed and ravaged by her enemies. 2030/2031 is the year when the remnant of Israel is waiting, watching, and crying out for the Lord to return. 2031/2032 is the year when the remnant of Israel is calm, humble, and hopeful, even though the nations of the world have gathered against them to destroy them in the battle that we call Armageddon. By this time, they have been refined like silver and gold and are now as precious as the Proverbs 31 woman. Rachel is now the bride the Lord always wanted her to be, and after 7 years, Jesus is on his way with Leah, that's us, to destroy his enemies and marry his bride Rachel. Then the millennial kingdom begins. Okay, so keep that storyline in mind as we go through the Song of Songs. So basically, I just wanted to give a real quick thumbnail sketch of what the Psalms, I mean, out of 640 pages, that's about as good as I could do to just narrow it down really quick, to have a little mini timeline of what's to come. And now, basically, what we're going to do is see how that matches up with the Song of Songs. Okay. Due to my time constraints, I'm going to keep this, obviously we already know this, keep this really short. In fact, I've narrowed 50-something pages down to only 9 pages to go over tonight. This was a huge task and I haven't been able to finish it. So, today I decided to shift gears and just do a quick, simple overview that will give you a pretty good idea of what the Song of Songs is all about from the timeline's perspective. That will allow me the time to finish the detailed study over the next few days, so I can include all of the interconnected scriptures, etc. I'm hoping to be able to post the document somewhere for everyone to read for free. So I'm not going to make a book out of this or anything, although it's long enough it could be a book. Once you read it, it would be great if you could print it out and leave it behind for others. Remember, anything that's on your computer or on anything digital is probably going to be deleted. So anything like this, I don't care who it's from, print it out. Find yourself a bin or something, draw attention to it for those who are left behind so that they can find it. You will have a reward in heaven, I guarantee you, for doing this, because people are going to be hungry and thirsty for the truth, and we're the only ones that have the truth. Okay, now here's a little note. In many translations, there is extra wording as aids added to help you understand who the translators thought was speaking at any given time. Some say, for example, the bride, friends, Solomon, etc. Those were not in the original manuscripts and cannot be trusted. That was their best guess at who they're trying to decipher. You know, the translators were trying to decipher who's speaking. They've made their best guess, but when you see those kind of words, you know, it's the Shulamite or it's the beloved or whatever, that was not in the original manuscript. So just what I did is I went online, I took all of the wording from different translations, and I dumped it into my word processor, Word, and I just erased all of that, because it gets confusing. You know, it gets really confusing. So, get ready, buckle up, because you're about to hear the Song of Songs revealed like never before. And now is when I skip 50 pages. So when I wrote that part, like back in March, it was supposed to be like, you know, we're going to really get into this, the meat of the subject right now, and we're not doing that tonight, so sorry. If you wanted to be here for another 3 hours, we probably could. Okay, but we're skipping. We're skipping all the way down to chapter 8, the last chapter. And the reason why I did this is because in chapter 8, which is the chapter I'm on, I finished 7, I'm on the 8th chapter, and 8th and final chapter. But what I did is I wanted to do a summary review before I really start the 8th chapter. And so today, after spending way too much time on this, I realized there's no way I can finish it to where I can be really happy with it. So I thought, why don't I take this little review that I did and use that as what we're going to talk about tonight. So, here we go. And I've never done this before. This is a new feat that I'm going to try. I do not have a safety net. I don't even have a crash helmet. This might be goofy, and you might laugh, but it's what I got, okay?
We got you back. You're
Okay, all right. The New King James Version gives the first 2 verses of chapter 8 a heading, which I have to reiterate did not appear in the original text. It says, lovers reunited at their country home. Where in the world did they get that from? Yeah, that's what it says. That's because the translators believe the greatest love song ever written was about a simple country farm girl marrying a rich king who they believed to be Solomon. That could make some sense, but I can't see how that makes it the greatest song or love song ever written. Remember? Song of Songs, that means this is the pinnacle. It doesn't get better than this, okay? It sounds like the plot of a low-budget Hallmark movie to me, quite frankly. And because I'm married, I've had to watch quite a few of those. Just saying. Although my wife has shifted from Hallmark to Great American something. It's basically like Pure Flix version of Hallmark. 'Cause Hallmark got a little weird for a while, and so we just basically said, nah, that's enough of that. Hey, there's a Skeeter. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like the plot of a low-budget Hallmark movie to me. No, this is the final chapter of what is truly the greatest song and story ever told. So I'm just going to substitute song and story, because it's not just song, obviously, it's a story. If this were a Hollywood blockbuster, it would be the greatest film in movie history, literally in all of eternity, and its budget would be immeasurable. Nothing in the cinematic universe could ever come close to this epic story of love, betrayal, sacrifice, war, honor, and redemption. This blockbuster began with an almost 2,000-year flashback to a kiss of betrayal and the pouring out of the King, the Anointed One, who came to heal the world. He ascended on... I should do this like a movie trailer. He ascended on high, but the mystery wasn't given away. I can't do that the whole time, so I'm not going to do that. What was shown was all of those who wanted to run after him and be drawn up to live in his presence. Okay, chapter 2, and I'm going to throw in chapter 2. Okay, did you guys understand that? Because I goofed it up and I started saying stupid things. The first chapter is Jesus' first visitation to earth. Okay? That's amazing. Stop and think. The greatest story ever told, and it's in the Bible. Don't you think it would be about the Son of God coming to redeem his creation?
Yes.
Duh.
Yeah.
This isn't about some...
Love story at their country home.
Yeah, I mean, one day I'm going to be face to face with Solomon, and I don't really want to... I mean, he was a playboy.
Yeah.
So what makes his little love story with some poor country girl the greatest love story ever told? It's nonsense.
Yeah.
But in the absence of anything real and tangible, what else would people think? But now that we have the timeline, you will see how it flows. It's so perfect. Now, that's not to say it's easy, because there are so many types and shadows and symbols throughout. I saw that mosquito, and now I'm kind of freaking out, because I just feel like he's on me everywhere right now. Anyway. But, okay. So chapter 1, in our really quick overview, was Jesus' first coming to earth. Okay? It follows the same pattern as the Garden of Gethsemane. He was with the disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane. Then he went away. Then he came back. Then he went away. Then he came, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So we start with him here. We literally start with him in the garden because that's where the kiss takes place. But see, if you don't know the timeline and you don't understand this, you think, oh, well, this is him kissing on some girl. Or some girl kissing on him. It's not. Okay. Chapter 2, which now we've jumped almost 2,000 years into the future, so now we're in our day today, 2025, 2026. So chapter 2 began with the revelation of where the king went and where he now dwells. The camera, now I set this up like it's a movie, all these movie shots. The camera then zooms in from overhead past the throngs of people to the king's betrothed, the special one who is working tirelessly among those masses. She exemplifies all of those who are on the narrow path to a glorious everlasting life with the King of Kings. And this is the last time I'm going to do that. Because I'll be really hoarse by the end of the day. Okay. Then, in an instant, on a lovely spring day, the king finally appears out of nowhere and whisks his betrothed away to be with him in the place he has prepared for her. You have to understand that there are multiple people included in the betrothed. Okay? That's not just one person, obviously. That's all of us. And that's all of us throughout the last 2,000 years. So she, the betrothed, is now with the Lord, obviously, and with all of those who went before her. We were all set apart and followed after the king in victory over death. And I hope that makes sense, because I tried to narrow this down really, really short. Okay, night falls over the land as the opening scene. Let me just back up. I'm sorry. That was the rapture. The rapture resurrection event happened in chapter 2. And once you, again, know the timeline, you can see it. Without the timeline, you can't see it. And I didn't, because this is a real short summary, I didn't put all the scriptures in here. That's what's in the 50 some odd pages that I still have to present somehow, and I'll probably just send it out somehow. I don't know. But it's pretty amazing, because all of those crazy sounding things that are going on, and all of the different, the gazelle and the this and the that, and the tower with the shields, and all that has meaning. And it can be deciphered, but it can't be deciphered without the timeline. Okay, so the rapture is in chapter 2. So now, night falls over the land as the opening scene of chapter 3 begins. That is 2026, 2027. Do you understand what the symbolism of nightfall is? Night is, we're in the light. The world is now in darkness. That's sort of the symbolism there. And that's how this chapter 3 begins. The king is gone. He cannot be found. But wait, just when all is seemingly lost, he appears with all the grandeur and opulence one would expect from a king. He arrives with pillars of smoke and 60 mighty men standing guard as he parades from the wilderness through the city streets. He sits in a structure made of the finest materials. And why not? After all, it's his wedding day. He has come to marry the daughter of Zion, or the daughters of Zion. However, they are being deceived, even the elect. So, can the elect be deceived?
Oh, yeah.
I hope not. Maybe he's not really the king, but an imposter. So, when you see Solomon parading in, just think about this. As we've talked about so many times, okay, Solomon is in the bloodline of David. He was David's son, right? The Antichrist has to reestablish the Davidic dynasty. That's a must. For the Jews, that's an absolute. Can't get around that. He has to rebuild the temple and reestablish the Davidic dynasty. That's why the name Solomon is used here, because he's a son of David. The Antichrist will also be a son of David. He's an imposter, though. Jesus is a type of son of David, obviously. It's all throughout the Bible. So what we're dealing with here, how could we not see this before? Smoke and all of this kind of stuff, and he's all like opulent and like, look at me, I'm parading around. Was that Jesus?
No.
Did Jesus ever do that?
Nope.
Why would... Yeah, anyway. Sorry. I look at even myself, I go, how was I that stupid? Like, how did I read this before and think, yeah, that makes sense to me? Because now it makes no sense whatsoever. It's because my eyes have been opened to it. It's like, oh, wow, okay. I was just kind of reading surface level before and not really, there's that mosquito. Okay, so I killed the mosquito, and now we're back. Believing that the promised king has finally come to rule over the land, chapter 4 begins with a scene of a mass migration of believers so grand that no single camera could capture it. The king's subjects, brothers and sisters, are shown pouring over the mountains as they make their way back to the promised land, exactly as foretold by the prophets of old. Chapter 5 begins with a short scene of the King of Kings in heaven, dining with all of those who have followed after him throughout the centuries. It's a glorious sight. The king is dining with all of those resurrected and raptured saints who heard the knock at the doors, or at their doors, and decided to open them to the lover of their souls. The camera fades to black. Now remember, we're kind of doing this as if it's a movie trailer. Then, I said I wasn't going to do that. Another loud knock on a door is heard, and the scene is lit to reveal the resident of the house. It's a lady. She heard the knock, but was too preoccupied and lazy to answer the door. A voice is heard outside the door saying, "Open to me, my love." But by the time she made it to the door, she opened it to find there was no one there. She didn't realize the knock was her only opportunity to escape the terror that lies ahead. It was the king himself who had come to save her, but she was too slow and too late to respond to his plea. She had excuses for why she didn't hurry to the door, but it was too late. He is gone. Do we all remember Matthew 24, starting in around verse 15? Jesus said, when you see the abomination of desolation, don't go back for your cloak, don't do anything, just go. It's time to go. He's going to be leading, you follow. You don't look back. That's Luke 17, remember Lot's wife. Don't look back, don't worry about your things, just go. This woman, she dilly-dallied, and finally she goes to the door, and it's like, my hands are dripping in myrrh, in liquid myrrh, and all this stuff. And it's like, if you read it, you'll be like, okay, yeah, it sounds silly. Myrrh is symbolic of death, okay? This person is going to die because she didn't make it. So there's going to be a lot of people. Remember, Zechariah 13 says only 1/3 of the remnant's going to be spared. 2/3 are going to die. She's one of them that dies, okay, just to put it bluntly. So, now, he's gone. He came, he went. This is just like the Garden of Gethsemane. He came 2,000 years ago. Then he came at the rapture resurrection, went back to the Father. We went to be with him in his house, in his Father's house. There are many mansions, right? And we were supposed to know the way. And then in the middle, he comes back. He comes back to rescue the remnant, but then he goes back again. He doesn't stay. So, in her panic, she runs outside to look for him in the city, hoping he could still be found. So a lot of people are going to realize, uh-oh. Now this is in Jerusalem, and I'm pretty sure this is in the springtime around Passover. The whole city is going to be full of all the Israelites coming to the glorious new temple to worship and all this, and so they're all going to be there, and this is when this is going to happen. Let's see. So in her panic, she runs outside to look for him in the city, hoping that he could still be found. However, instead of finding her lover, her king, she is beaten and stripped by the very ones who were supposed to protect her. She is left crying out for her lover. She describes him to the residents of the city, hoping someone will find him for her, but it was too late. He is nowhere to be found. That's pretty sad. Chapter 6 opens with the residents of... Do you see how these are years?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 8 of them. There's 7 years of tribulation, but the first one isn't part of the tribulation. The first one is his first coming.
Yeah.
And then basically summarizing 2,000 years between there of everyone who has died and gone to be with him. When you read about the lilies, his field, his garden and all that, the lilies, that's heaven. Okay. So chapter 6 opens with the residents of her town, Jerusalem, asking her where her lover, the king, has gone. Let me just stop there real quick. Have you ever read this and thought, why do they beat her up? She comes out like, oh, where is my lover? Where have you found my lover? To talking to the residents or to the watchman on the wall, basically, and they beat her up.
Don't know.
Well, it's because if you follow the timeline, this is the time when Israel is going to be pummeled. It's the abomination of desolation. Israel is going to be desolate. That means they're going to be crushed. Israel basically will cease to exist mostly at that time. They're going to be militarily crushed. That's why she's beaten up. Okay. Chapter 6 opens with the residents of her town. So this woman is like a person, but she's embodying the nation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you read about her getting beat up, this is Israel, the nation, getting beat up. Not the remnant, because they're safe in the refuge. And it jumps back and forth And again, without the timeline, you don't know who's talking. But now we do know who's talking because we have the timeline.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you if people would understand, they talk about her, that it's actually Israel.
Yeah, hopefully. Israel is presented in several ways, so all of this is confusing, but like when it talks about the mother and things like that, that's Israel. Okay, that's Israel as a foundation, as a nurturing foundation, basically. That's their history. But the woman that you're dealing with now isn't all of the past, she's the present Israel. You go to Revelation, I hope that makes sense, but you go to Revelation 12, and of course you see the same thing. There's a woman giving birth. Yeah, her child is actually caught up, and then she flees into the wilderness. So the woman is Israel, but present tense Israel.
Dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, or to devour her child as soon as it was born, as she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of God. Yeah.
So that's what's happening right now. That's where we're at in the Song of Songs. She has fled into the wilderness. She being, see, it's always a woman.
Yeah.
Just like Leah, Rachel, it's always a woman. God wrapped all this up around it being a woman. It's not ever a man. You know, so anyway. So Revelation chapter 12, we see that the woman is with child. She gives birth to the child. The devil basically is there to destroy the child. The child is caught up to heaven. And then the woman has to flee into the wilderness, where she will be provided for and protected for the rest of the tribulation period. That's what we're talking about in the Song of Songs, okay? So, chapter 6. So chapter 6 opens with the residents of her town, Jerusalem, asking her where her lover the king has gone. Maybe they really want to know, or maybe they're scoffing at her. But by now she has figured it out, and she knows exactly where he has gone. Maybe she read my book. Now she knows. Well, I can only pray and hope that she's read my book. So now she knows that he came only for a moment to lead those who are ready to safety in a refuge where they will be cared for and provided for until his final return. Again, that's Revelation chapter 12, Matthew 24, 15 through whatever. Everyone in her town, so everyone in her town had to be ready to drop everything in an instant and to follow him when he called. If not, they were left behind. They were warned, okay? You can't really get around it. You can't say, Lord, we didn't know that, because it's right in God's word. If you're reading it, you know it. Once the king's mission was complete, he returned to his home to be with and care for all of those who had previously followed him in the way home to the Father's house. That would be us. See you at Armageddon. The scene changes, and we're now with the special one, the bride who was waiting and watching in anticipation of her king's return. So there was a switch that happened there. Unless you know the timeline, you don't know who's speaking. You don't know who we're talking about. So one beloved was left behind and gets pummeled. The other beloved is in the refuge, okay? He loves all of them, but part of them weren't ready. And unfortunately, they're the 2/3 that will probably not survive of Israel. So she was the one who answered the door as soon as she heard the knock. She didn't hesitate or look back. She ran after the king and wouldn't let him out of her sight. Now she is being cared for in the refuge, safe and protected from the enemies on the outside. Just as she was waiting and watching for her king's return to lead her to safety from her ever-growing number of enemies, now she's waiting and watching for his final return to lead her out of the refuge and into his promised kingdom. In chapter 7, we see just how beautiful and special the bride of the king is. And this is not Solomon's bride, by the way. She has been refined and is ready to leave the protection of the refuge and go out into the fields and villages with her love, the king, to begin a new life together. but it isn't time yet. She'll have to wait a little while longer and be patient. The final chapter, chapter 8, begins with a view of the outside of the protective refuge. A large group of people, mostly Gentile saints, have gathered around the supernatural enclosure, hoping to be able to enter into its protection and provision. However, this is very unfortunate. What the Lord has shut, no man can open. Opening it simply isn't possible until the King returns to open it himself. Death and destruction, flame and disaster fill the scene during the final chapter, but that's only on the outside of the refuge. On the inside, the young bride is being prepared for her reunion with the King and for her wedding day, which is close at hand. Another conflict is brewing. The time has finally come, and the King is ready to remove the impostor and his workers of iniquity from his vineyard. At the same time, war and devastation continues to rage on the outside of the refuge. However, on the inside, young Rachel is finally ready to meet her husband, the King. She calls out to him and says, "Make haste! Come quickly, Lord. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." A glorious light envelops the scene as the movie ends. It is perfectly set up for a part 2. In fact, there is a trilogy in the works. The next film will be entitled The Return of the Messiah. It will be followed closely by The Rise of the Millennial Kingdom. And that is the Song of Solomon. So if you read the last verse of Song of Solomon, chapter 8, it's basically, make haste, come back. The gazelle, that's Jesus. Skipping on the mountains and all that, that's Jesus. That is symbolic of his return. So, makes sense? You see how it flows exactly with the timeline in the Psalms? I mean, if you just really stop and think about it, why would that book be in the Bible if it didn't have something deeper, some deeper meaning? People say, well, you know, it goes along with Ephesians 5:25 and it's about marriage and stuff. And okay, yeah,
Good point,
It's multifaceted. So yes, it can do all of that, all of the above. But all of these different symbols and things in there, they all have a deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And it all fits on the timeline. The flow, the progress of this whole narrative fits exactly on the timeline. Even when you go online and you look up like Song of Solomon and you click on images in Google, you'll see like a black lady marrying this really white king. Well, because, you know, in chapter 1 it says that she's dark and lovely.
Oh.
But she's dark and lovely not because she's of a different race. I mean, that's... I get how people could think that.
Yeah.
But if you keep reading, you see that she was tending to his vineyard and not her own. She was working in the field. That's why she's dark and lovely, like the tents of Kedar, because she's actually working for the king. She's out. She's not sitting at home. She's working.
Yeah.
That's the point of it. That's the symbolism. So, you know. Anyway, so today's mission, if you choose to accept it, is to, once again, we've done this a few times, but it's super important now, probably more than ever, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, okay? I believe something big is coming. They have engaged in basically moving into Gaza full force now. They have mobilized their troops. They have called up reservists, and they are focused very narrowly, it seems right now, on Gaza, which might leave the rest of the country kind of, you know, at risk, because they've narrowed their focus. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not a military strategist, but if I were Iran being pushed into a corner, knowing that they're about to attack me, because they keep signaling that, I think I would be attacking first, a la Gog Magog. I mean, Ezekiel 38 and 39. I don't think that's far off. And according to everything we've been studying and all the revelations that we've had, it seems to me like we will see the end of that invasion where God will be victorious and then the rapture happens. When you connect Luke 17 to Ezekiel 39 verse 4 and then so on, it all starts to add up. So that's where I stand on it, and that literally could happen any day. I see that Syria now, since it's been taken over, and you got Jelani and all suited up and like he's a nice guy now, even though a couple weeks ago he had $10 million on his head and he was a terrorist killer thug. Now that whole country appears to be wide open. I mean, who's minding the store, So it could literally be wide open for a pathway from the north, just like Ezekiel 38, down into Israel to attack.
Now, could it be possible that Israel may not send all the troops up that way, that they could be back waiting to protect?
Well, I suspect, obviously, yeah. I don't think they've literally sent everyone, but they've called up a lot of reservists, and they've got a really narrow focus right now. And so, I think obviously there are other troops and there's other things going on around the nation, but they have an emphasis right now on Gaza. When you're narrowly focused in one direction, you can get blindsided from another direction. And they've been fighting, as they say, a 7-front war now for quite a while. And now most of those fronts have calmed down, except for like the Houthis, and that's a missile every now and then or whatever, and it doesn't seem to be that successful. So, they've kind of gone in full force with Gaza right now, and I just think that they're kind of open to being blindsided. But as we discussed earlier, it could be that all this is a plan. I suspect it's all a plan, because I don't think anybody's that dumb. They keep giving away their secrets and like, well, we're going to attack them anytime now. We're going to attack them. We're going to take out their nuclears. Why would you advertise that? Unless you're trying to goad them into attacking you. Because if they're backed into a corner, basically, and they have no way out, and they want to kill you, then why wouldn't they just attack you first? Like, why would they wait until you take out their nuclear sites to then say, okay, well, I guess we got to do something? They want your blood anyway. So, I don't know. I just suspect that all of this is scripted, and we are being deceived. And I think that there is a hidden one behind the scenes that is already fully in control of world events, and he just hasn't been revealed to the world yet. And that's not going to happen until we are out of here, and that's what I believe. So anyway, the point was, though, to pray for not just for the peace and safety of Jerusalem, because in the end, what does that matter? It's the salvation of the people. Yeah, because again, I've mentioned before that Messianic Jews right now make up somewhere around 2, maybe 3% of their population in Israel. And we've got to get literally to a third before Zechariah 13 can happen. They need a third of Israel being believers in Yeshua, who know to expect when they see the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place where he shouldn't be. That's the time when they need to be fleeing. Okay, so a third of them are going to know that. We're way far from that right now. So anyway, my prayer is that everyone will really for this week be praying for the salvation of the Jews and the Israelite people. As much as you're praying for your family and your friends, and who kind of isn't saved and who's on the wrong path, and you're praying for them. And by the way, people that ask me to pray for their loved ones, I am praying for their loved ones. I do that regularly, and I'm very happy to do that. And thank you again for praying for this ministry. And we pray that, people will share it. I know it looks silly, because again, there's no, bookshelves behind me and all that stuff. We're in an old car shop, but, Lord uses foolish things to confound the wise. So anyway, if you would pray for Israel and the Jews, for their salvation and their protection, just as you would your own family and your own friends, I would greatly appreciate it. And that is the challenge for this week. So thank you. I know this one was short compared to our 2-hour things that we do. I am very hopeful that I can finish the writing of all of this and then get it out there within the next few days, hopefully before Wednesday. Somehow, some way, if I can do that, I will leave a link in the description how to find it, and then please read it. It won't be like a 640-page book. It'll be like a 50, 60-page book, and it's manageable. And I think it will make a lot of sense, and I have a lot of scripture and a lot of connections in there because there's so many dots to be connected. And even where it's at right now, I still feel like I fall short of connecting all the dots. So there's just no way I can't do it all. So anyway, God bless you. Thank you for watching, and thank you for watching to the end. And don't forget to buy the book and leave it behind. And God bless you, and have a wonderful week ahead. Take care. This isn't like bloopers at the end. This is something that I wanted to throw in here, and I just forgot. And I even said I was going to forget, and I did exactly that. So at least I wasn't lying. Okay, so I'll have to figure this out because I just basically took this section out of the 50-something pages, and it really doesn't flow in with anything unless you have what's before it. But I mentioned earlier that I've been studying and going through the book of Job, okay? This Song of Songs has taken me a few months, along with everything else that I'm doing, and it's 8 chapters. Job is 42 chapters. The likelihood of me being able to go through that is pretty much slim to none right now. So, what I did is, while I was doing Song of Songs, there was a section in chapter 6 that kind of was a tie-in, and so I thought, you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and write out kind of the simplified, bare nuts and bolts section, okay? And just put that in there so that it's out there. So if we're no longer here, it's out there. Somebody can write it, somebody can, what do you call it when they put the words at the bottom of the screen?
Subtitle?
Oh, yeah, well there's that, but I think in YouTube too, you can get a transcript.
Like
Yeah,
closed
transcript,
captions.
yeah.
Yeah, so
No,
anyway.
The transcript.
But this will also be in the whole document that I will post as soon as I can once I finish it. And I have to clean up all of I gotta do my editing because like I don't want to look like a total idiot. Like grammar, I'm talking about grammar and stuff. Anyway, so let me just figure out where I'm at here. I'll just start right here. If verse 8 isn't a secret and mysterious encryption, I don't know what is. Of course, I don't know what. Okay, yes. Verse 8 of chapter 6 was, there are 60 queens and 80 concubines and virgins without number. Okay? The total of 60 queens and 80 concubines is 140. The number 140 does appear in the Bible in the book of Job. Job lived another 140 years after his great tribulation period according to the 42nd chapter of Job. You notice I threw in the great tribulation period because that's what he was going through. And that's what Israel's going to go through. For 42 months. Imagine that. There might be a connection there. In that same chapter, we discover that Job's fortune and family was restored back to him twofold. Okay? In Job 1, he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys, and had a large number of servants. I want to stop right here and just add this. Donkeys, camels, goats, sheep, they die, new ones are born. So think about it. There's got to be a reason why these numbers are in here, because on any given day these numbers would change, right?
Yeah.
That, you know that. You guys have horses, so
Yeah.
things happen. New ones come along, old ones die off. So for these exact numbers to be in here, there's got to be a reason for it, and we're going to get to that. In Job 42, so that was the first chapter. Now in Job 42, the last chapter, he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys, exactly double. And he also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. The same number as before, only replaced. So the old ones died. Now he has 7 new sons and 3 new daughters, okay? So let's do some simple math. He started with 7 sons and 3 daughters in chapter 1. Those children died, but he had 7 more sons and 3 more daughters in his 140 extra years. If you add all of those children together, you get a total of 20. Because there were 10 in the beginning and now 10 more. So he had a total of 20 children. Now, let's count the animals. Job started with 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 oxen, and 500 donkeys. At the end of his life, he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. Let's get rid of the zeros and add those together. The total of his animals was 33. Remember, I just dumped all the zeros. If you don't mix animals and people together, because you shouldn't, let's take the 20 children and place that number before the 33 animals and see what we get. We get 2033. Israel's 84th year, which is 2 times 42, and that will be 2032/2033. That's the start of the 1,000 year time of abundance under the rule of Jesus. Do you see how that connects? Job's time of abundance and our time of abundance in the millennial kingdom. I believe the book of Job is a treasure chest full of wisdom for those who will be seeking the Lord in the days of the tribulation, especially the final 42-month great tribulation. Job is a type and shadow of that time, and there are important details sprinkled throughout his story that will be of great value one day very soon. Here's one more from the book of Job, since I don't think I will have time to finish a complete study before we're gone. Do you remember that Job had 3 friends who seemed to make his life worse during his 42 chapters? Actually, little known fact, he had 3.5 friends. There isn't much teaching about this last friend. He remains quiet until chapter 32. His name was Elihu, and he points out that he did not want to speak because he was so much younger than Job and his other 3 friends. Job 32:6. So Elihu, the son of Barachel and the Buzite, answered and said, I am young in years, and you are very old. Therefore I was afraid and dared not declare my opinion to you. Even though Elihu said he didn't want to speak, he actually had a lot to say. When he started, he didn't stop. He went on for 7 chapters and didn't shut up until the Lord spoke. Out of the storm is where the Lord spoke in chapter 38. Interestingly, the Lord never spoke to or rebuked Elihu as he did the other 3 friends in chapter 42. Elihu in Hebrew means he is my God. Do you see how the Lord encrypted all of this together? The great tribulation that Job suffered over 42 chapters, 3.5 friends, which ended with him having an abundance that totals 20 children and 33,000 animals over his lifetime, is a type and shadow of what Israel will suffer during their 42 months / 3.5 years great tribulation, which will end in 32-33. I believe the millennial kingdom starts in 2033, but because of God's calendar versus ours, you could say 2032, 2033, it really doesn't matter. You just can't make that stuff up.
Nope.
And I'm not smart enough to figure that out. If God didn't show me these things, it wouldn't happen. I wouldn't know about it. I'd just be working on a carburetor, fix carburetor. Remember, we were talking about the 60 queens and 80 concubines. That's how all of this started, because that results in 140, and that's kind of how the Lord opened that up. And I thought, wait a minute, where do I know that number from? And then I started digging, and it's like, no way. Anyway, this is actually the end. Thank you. God bless you. And it's hot in here. I'm ready to go home. Good night.